An Illinois mayor is getting national attention for the way that she's spending taxpayer dollars.
In Dalton, Illinois, Mayor Tiffany Henyard is living large on taxpayer money. Accused of funding lavish vacations and shopping sprees with public funds, she's now under FBI investigation. How did all this spiral out of control? Let's dive in. So, who is Tiffany Henyard and how did she get here? Tiffany Henyard wasn't always a name synonymous with scandal. In fact, her political journey started with a wave of optimism. When Henyard was elected mayor of Dalton in 2021, she was seen as fresh face, ready to bring change to the community. With promises of revitalizing the town, addressing housing concerns, and helping veterans, people believed in her vision. She even secured 82% of the vote, a massive victory by any standard. But something changed along the way. Henyard wasn't just content with being a mayor of Dalton. She soon added another title to her name: Thornton Township Supervisor, a position that came with an additional hefty salary. Here's where things get interesting. Holding two positions of power at once, Henyard became known as Super Mayor, and with that came perks, not just in prestige, but in income too. She was pulling around $200,000 a year, but did that success go to her head? Because before long, she was at the heart of one of the most shocking financial scandals the town has ever seen. Henyard's ability to juggle multiple roles might have seemed impressive at some, but for many others, it was the beginning of her downfall. As mayor and township supervisor, Henyard wielded immense control over local budgets, decision-making, and public resources. This dual authority sets the stage for the eventual accusations that would lead to her downfall.
I remember I told everybody when I first became supervisor here that the previous administration and some of them sitting in the crowd was stealing. Did they want to write that story? No, they did not, because white is right.
Over time, residents and political observers started to wonder whether holding such powerful roles simultaneously blurred the lines of accountability. With no clear checks on her power, suspicions about Henyard's financial decision began to mount. Alright, let's talk about money. For a small town mayor, Henyard was living far beyond what you'd expect: lavish trips, designer shopping sprees, and an extravagant security detail. Henyard's spending was off the chart. But where did the money come from? Allegedly, taxpayer dollars. Dalton, a town with a population of just 20,000, doesn't have a massive budget, and yet Henyard was burning through it like a celebrity on a shopping spree. One particular shocking example: she spent $561,000 to repave her mother's driveway. Yep, you heard that right. Her mom's driveway got a facelift on the town's dime. But it didn't stop there. Henyard also spent a mind-boggling $33,000 on Amazon in one day. Really? What could she possibly need to buy that's worth $33,000 in one day? While the residents of Dalton was wondering how their mayor was affording such a luxurious lifestyle, their own town was sinking deeper into debt. The spending spree wasn't limited to just home improvements and shopping. Henyard's security detail alone cost Dalton over $1 million, with some officers logging overtime hours that simply didn't add up. One officer, Terry Young, recorded 303 hours in just 2 weeks. That's physically impossible, so what was going on behind the scenes? For many residents, the most infuriating aspect of Henyard's lavish spending was not just the extravagance but the blatant disregard for the community's urgent needs. While Henyard splurged on luxuries, Dalton's infrastructure and public services were rapidly deteriorating. Basic maintenance such as road repairs, street lights, and public spaces took a backseat at the mayor's personal indulgence. Small businesses that relied on the town's financial support were left hanging, and the community watched in frustration as funds meant for the public good seemed to vanish into private interests. It wasn't long before the red flags started popping up, with residents questioning Henyard's extravagant spending. The village board stepped in and called for investigation. But guess what? Henyard rejected resolution for the probe, claiming that it was just a personal attack. Really? If everyone was above board, why block an investigation? The problem didn't end there. The town hadn't had a proper audit for its finances since 2021, and with a growing deficit, people were starting to ask serious questions. Dalton was facing a multi-million-dollar debt, and basic services like street repairs and tree trimming weren't being paid for. While Henyard was living it up, the town's finances were crumbling. And then, the FBI got involved. When the FBI steps in, you know things are serious. An investigation was launched into Henyard's financial practices, with rumors swirling that millions of dollars in cash had been found stashed in her home. Suddenly, this wasn't just a local issue. This was national news. The FBI's involvement marked the turning point in the investigation. Typically, when FBI steps in a case like this, it suggests that the evidence of wrongdoing had become substantial enough to warrant federal scrutiny. Financial crimes like embezzlement, wire fraud, and misuse of public funds are serious offenses that can lead to significant penalties. The FBI doesn't just investigate lightly. They bring in forensic accountants, proper paper trails, and dig deep into financial records. So, when agents began combining through Dalton's finances, residents knew the situation was worse than they had initially thought. What exactly did FBI find? Well, they started looking into everything: Henyard's personal accounts, village finances, and even her property management company. The focus wasn't just on her lavish spending, but on whether she had misappropriated taxpayer money through fraudulent transactions and wire fraud. The village's financial mess was so deep that Illinois even froze funds to Dalton, preventing any money from going in or out until they could figure out what was happening. The impact of freezing Dalton's fund was felt almost immediately. Public services that were already struggling became even more crippled. Garbage collection slowed, roads were left in despair, and local schools faced budget shortfalls. The town, already on edge due to rumors of corruption, began to panic as essential services deteriorated. Local businesses, which had once relied on the village for contracts and maintenance work, suddenly found themselves with no work or payments. The financial chokehold placed on Dalton was not only a wake-up call to the residents, but also a grim reminder of how a leader's mismanagement can ripple through every layer of the community. The pressure mounted as citizens demanded answers and accountability from Henyard and her administration. A key player in this whole investigation was Keith Freeman, Henyard's former right-hand man. Freeman had been indicted for bankruptcy fraud, and once he was caught, he started cooperating with investigators. He had insider knowledge, and that's where things took a major turn. Freeman began revealing just how deeply Henyard was involved in financial mismanagement, and suddenly, her claims of innocence didn't hold much weight anymore. Henyard didn't just deal with the FBI. Her own allies started turning against her. One of the most notable whistleblower was Carmen Carlisle, a former trustee who worked closely with Henyard. Carlisle exposed the toxic environment Henyard had created within the administration, detailing instances of manipulation, retaliation, and lies. And she wasn't the only one. More former employees came forward with stories of being fired or harassed for refusing to go along with Henyard's shady practices. Take, for instance, Dwayne Thrash. He worked for Thornton Township for years, and when Henyard asked him to swap out an attorney for one favored by her assistant, he refused, even when offered the $10,000 raise. What happened next? He was fired. This wasn't just a case of financial mismanagement. This was a mayor who allegedly used her position to settle personal scores and maintain control at any cost. As more people spoke up, the picture became clear. Henyard's administration was built on a foundation of greed, corruption, and a blatant disregard for the town's well-being. Carlisle's decision to turn whistleblower was significant because it signaled the broader unraveling of Henyard's administration from within. People who had once supported Henyard began to distance themselves as more information came to light. This kind of internal collapse is common in political scandals, where once loyal allies flip to save their own reputation or avoid legal repercussions. Carlisle's testimony opened the floodgates, with others coming forward to corroborate the claims of misconduct. In a small community like Dalton, this level of public exposure can be devastating, eroding trust in local government. So, where does this lead Dalton? The town is facing a massive financial crisis, and Henyard's political career is hanging by a thread. The FBI investigation is ongoing, and there's a real possibility that Henyard could face criminal charges, including wire fraud and embezzlement. If convicted, she could be looking at significant jail time. But for the people of Dalton, the damage has already been done. The town is millions of dollars in debt, and it will take years to recover. The big question now is, can Dalton bounce back? Rebuilding trust in local government won't be easy, especially after such a high-profile scandal. But with the FBI's investigation underway and new leadership on the horizon, there's hope that Dalton can turn things around. Tiffany Henyard's rise and fall serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked power. What started as a hopeful new chapter of Dalton quickly turned into a nightmare of corruption, financial ruin, and betrayal. For the residents of Dalton, the road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: accountability matters, and no one, not even a small town mayor, is above the law. What do you think about Henyard's action? Do you think she'll face criminal charges? And how should Dalton rebuild from here? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more updates on this developing story.